Hello, Capstone. Hey, happy Tuesday. Today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the expectations for the paper. Just because as I was looking through the outlines last week, I noticed that there were a few that were more suited to the IRR, which is a shorter paper, than they are for the IWA. So as you can see here, for the IWA, the expectation is that it's around 2,000 words in length. This one counts more, of course, than the other paper does. So you do want to make sure if you want to get the college credit for this one that you get around that particular length. And of course, this one, once again, is an argument, and you must use at least one of the sources from the stimulus pack in a way that makes it essential to the argument. So what I did was I took a couple of successful IWAs and I converted the outlines into questions, and I counted up the number of body paragraphs to kind of give you an idea about what some of the successful papers are doing with that kind of length. So let's first talk about this one. This is one that I guess it was came out a few years ago. I don't remember exactly what the stimulus was about, but the title of this one is Amending the United States Federal Laws on Child Labor in Agriculture. Is a bushel of wheat worth one's childhood? And this essay, by the way, contains 10 body paragraphs. There's about 10 body paragraphs. This student used some short sections in there to summarize each major section of his or her paper, but overall there are about 10 body paragraphs in there. So that kind of gives you an idea. Remember, with the IRRs, oftentimes the IRRs were just 3 big body paragraphs. Since this is a longer paper and has to do more, it is going to have more components to it. So just to kind of look at how this one breaks down, the research question was, should the Child Labor Provisions for Agricultural Occupations Act be amended to put tighter restrictions on children working on agricultural farms in the United States? And this student determined that, well, yes, the CLPAO should be amended to be similar to the child labor provisions for non-agricultural occupations. This student, this student had 3 major sections in the paper. And what I did was, instead of breaking it up by paragraph, I broke it up by question. So what are all the questions that a reader might have about this, or that would have to be answered to prove this successfully, and in what order do we address them? So the first section did this: at what age can a child begin working on a farm in the U.S.? Now that obviously is for an audience of people like me who for sure do not know a lot about this. Why are children more vulnerable than adults to health problems from farm work? How does farm work harm children's health? So these two questions are overlapping, but they're very important in that they're kind of different, right? So obviously everybody is going to experience potential health problems from farm work, but children, it turns out, are more susceptible. I need to know that, and then I need to know the specific ways that that's going to be the case. Now, of course, we know that it's often older children, also known as adolescents, who are doing that, and so this is addressed too. So is this true, this harm, will it harm adolescents as well? How else does farm work affect children's health, and why? What do people who support child labor on farms say about this issue? So here we get the potential counter arguments here. And this one, it basically just had 2 sections of that. So what are the different things that people use to justify the use of child labor on farms? Second section, how many hours are children allowed to work on farms? How does the extent of these work hours affect children's education? How does the extent of these work hours affect children's personal development? What do people who support child labor say about these issues? And then ultimately, do the benefits of child labor outweigh the harms done to children? Well, why not? So this is where the person really puts in the rebuttal to all of the potential counter arguments, in saying that, look, overall, all of the harms that I've shown you simply do not justify. I mean, with all the benefits that are out there, the harms definitely outweigh the benefits. Okay, so then the last section is, well, what should the government do to the child labor provisions for agricultural operations law to solve these particular problems? Then, well, why should the law be changed in these particular ways, right? Because there's lots of things that we can do, but putting together a really practical idea, not one that's simply like, we'll just ban everything or whatever. Actually coming up with something that's feasible and something that could get passed politically. This is what makes this a challenge. So why should the laws be changed? What happened when people tried to change the law in the past? So that's very important for the political feasibility. Why did proposed changes fail? What can be done to make the changes successful this time? And then, well, what can still go wrong? So this is where our limitations come in. And why should the government make changes to the CLPAO despite these limitations? So I know that my solution has some problems to it. Why should we do it anyway? So that's this particular paper, and all of this, again, was accomplished in 10 body paragraphs. I left off questions that were addressed in the introduction here. Let me take a look at one more paper. This one is about the H-1B work visa program. The question here was, given its role in passing the program, should the U.S. Senate Judiciary Committee revise the H-1B work visa program? And the answer that this student came up with was, based on an assessment of the H-1B program's goals and its real-life implementation, the Judiciary Committee should reform the program's implementation to realign the program with its theoretical goals. So this one also had 10 body paragraphs, and I just put the questions in here by paragraph. Again, I skipped the introduction, I skipped the conclusion. P1 was, what were the original goals of the H-1B program, and how do we know? P2, what is the American work ethic? How is it defined? Do the original goals for the H-1B program align with historically established cultural ideals about the American work ethic? And so I guess what the student has decided to do is to say, well, is the H-1B program a good match for our culture and its ideas about economics and work, industriousness, reward, stuff like that? How have researchers defined the ideals of the American work ethic? How well does the H-1B program align with these ideals? So this person went from a historical perspective to a more narrow, well, this group of people has studied this and they say that there are these components. Well, how well does it match up? And so continuing that, how well does the H-1B program fulfill its purposes of attracting highly talented workers? So that was an aspect, talent and so forth being rewarded was an aspect of the American work ethic. So this one right here, how well does it achieve that purpose, and how do we know? Paragraph 5 was, can the H-1B program sustain its ability to attract highly talented workers in the future? So apparently it was pretty good in the past, but what it looks like is that it's not going to be doing so well. It's already starting to flounder. So what do the current trends suggest? That's in this paragraph. How will the decline in its ability to attract these workers affect businesses? That's also in that paragraph. Paragraph 6, how can the H-1B program continue to sustain its ability to meet its second goal by providing equality to H-1B workers? And then, of course, why not? Because we know that it can't. So just like attracting highly talented workers, creating equality in the workforce in terms of opportunity, a sort of fairness in the playing field, that's another goal that aligns with the American work ethic, is that people have an open market or a system that's fair under which they can flourish or flounder depending upon their abilities, their talents, and their work ethic. Will domestic workers also suffer from inequality? There it is again, due to the H-1B program, and why? And we know that these are both negative. Paragraph 8 was, well, how can the H-1B program be revised so that it continues to serve its purpose by recruiting talented workers and protecting the equality of workers? So here's where we have our solution right here. What will opponents to this change say, and why are the opponents wrong? So we've got our counter argument and rebuttal right there. How can domestic workers be protected from unfair competition caused by the H-1B program? So that goes back to that second goal of equality for all workers. What are the limitations of these approaches? So this is like part of the solution too. This is like solution 1, solution 2 here with its limitations. And then finally down here at the bottom, how could changes to the H-1B program proceed, and how likely are the changes to be passed by Congress? So just like the other one, the political feasibility of this, or the actual ability to carry through the solution, we know this matters because anybody can say, well, I think we should grow money on trees. But yeah, that's a solution in somebody's fantasy land. How about the real American political landscape? So why and how do we know? That's addressed right before the conclusion of this paper. All right. So what I hope you see here is that, each of these papers goes into quite a bit of depth and addresses a number of different questions that a reader might have, all centered around what's the problem, what's causing the problem, what are the effects of the problem, what's a good solution, how plausible is that solution, how is it going to work, have other things been tried in the past, and so forth. In any case, I hope this helps you to some degree think about where you might extend your paper if you're not getting enough in there. And again, I saw some outlines that look like they need a lot more. They're just not going to be 2,000 word papers yet. So that will maybe require some more research, some more outlining, and so forth. That's fine. That's all part of the research process. In any case, I'm done with this screencast. I will be joining you again here shortly with another one on more on the body paragraphs and the conclusion. Bye-bye.